What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the sixth album by rapper Common. Basically, this album is called B, and it came out in the spring of 2005. Now, the thing about this particular project is just the fact that the thing about this particular project is it was helmed by Kanye West, who was on a particular kind of popular high back in those days between the college dropout and him getting ready to drop Late Registration. So this is kind of one that was executive produced by Kanye, and the concept about it was Common was kind of coming off of like a kind of relatively mediocre received kind of album with like Electric Circus, but I kind of feel like this particular album is pretty much a pretty sheer Common project. Like initially I wasn't sure what I was going to think about it. I remember at least the singles. I remember from back in the day like Testify and Go, which were both pretty dope songs to kind of hear throughout MTV and VH1 throughout 2005 and stuff. I don't really remember like the rest of this album. I wanted to see what it was about because this is an album that a number of critics had said was pretty good. Like Double XL gave this album like a perfect Double XL rating, and I think this got a 5 star. I want to say that this album got like a 5 stars from AllMusic.com, which is not common for that to kind of happen. Maybe I don't know what the source gave it and some of that type of stuff. I just would have to say some pretty good concepts here. The thing about this particular album is Common is kind of a more lyrical and kind of more thought provoking kind of rapper. So this is not like a nightclub kind of album. I mean, it does go out, and that's kind of the surprising thing about it is kind of an album that kind of has like a degree of like. I mean, this is not an introverted album. I just had to say it's more thoughtful, but at the same time, it does have some of that kind of nightlife as far as that kind of goes. It's interesting kind of get this particular concept because Common is traversing either through the city or kind of at bars or things like that, or dance clubs even in some cases. It just has some good concepts that kind of go along with that make this for a fun time. So I do see the quality of it. I do think Kanye West beats on here are pretty awesome. They definitely fit the bill as far as that kind of happens. They definitely have some good quality concepts as far as that kind of goes. I do like the concept of the fact that I didn't realize that there were 5 singles off this album, which is pretty good to kind of get that. It's interesting enough to kind of have some of these just because I look after that this was a pretty quality album, despite the fact that Go was probably the biggest song on here, and even that didn't chart that heavily on the Billboard 100. But there were a number of songs. He kind of has a live song on here that was on the Chappelle show back in 2004, which is pretty dope to kind of get as far as that kind of happens. At least I think it was. It was either Chappelle's show or it was like Chappelle's block party, something like that. I'm not really sure. Maybe it was Chappelle's show, but I just kind of look after it. Common was kind of working on this album throughout 2004, and it's Kanye West in his prime too, especially like his production prime. I just would have to say this is some real clever beats on here. This album has some real clever beats on here and just an overall good time that kind of works pretty fittingly. So it's a good concept. This is pretty much damn near a classic. Like I can see the brunt of like what people have to say about this particular project. I mean, I'm not going to give it a 10, but it's going to get pretty damn close, I would have to say. So it's definitely some quality here, and I do recommend to pick this up, despite the fact that it's not really a casual album. It's kind of a more mindful album, but I would still have to say it does have some quality on here. Like Common is a pretty good lyricist. He has some good Kanye West type beats. If you like albums like Late Registration and Graduations and stuff like that, I would definitely recommend B because this is like a cousin of that particular style. It definitely works pretty damn well. So yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. There were 5 of them, and I recommend all 5, so that should tell you something about the concept as far as that kind of goes. The first single is The Food, and this came out in the fall of 2004. This is kind of like a peppy, kind of saloon-like bar hopping kind of tune. I would have to say it's got some affable energy, and the song has some affable energy and social vibe, I would have to say, and it's a pretty boisterous song. So this is definitely one that just kind of reminds me of, I don't know if saloons are still around. I don't know if saloons are still around or something like that, but it definitely has like a pretty pub crawling, bar hopping type tune as far as that kind of happens. This really feels like something where you'd have like those cowboy kind of beer mugs, that type of stuff, just out of the 1800s, early 1900s, to something like that. This really kind of feels saloon like. Just definitely like to feel that particular one. It's pretty dope to kind of have a beat like this particularly work. And this is kind of a live song. Kanye West helps out on this song, but this is kind of a live song as far as that kind of happens. Dave Chappelle's at the very beginning of the song. This is an overall hit song. Definitely like this one's pretty good one, real affable and this energetic type song that just hits the nail on the head pretty damn well. So that's a nice one. The second single, which is kind of a surprising one that's a single, is The Corner. This is kind of like a street light and kind of cityscaping type feel, I would have to say. It's interesting to kind of get that one. It's just kind of a jibber jabber and evening commerce type tune. So the thing about this particular song, this really feels like when the song says The Corner, it really feels like you're kind of hanging out on like a street corner or something like that, especially in Chicago or New York, Philadelphia, some of those type places as far as that kind of happens. This really feels like Midwest, more big city Midwest places like Chicago, those type places, Detroit, some of those type places, just in a more city hopping kind of sense as far as that kind of goes, just East Coast type stuff. This really works as like a good street light, kind of bright street lights, just evening cityscaping type feel as far as that kind of happens. Just really kind of feels like, I don't know, like you're trying to pick up some beers and talk with some buds about playing pool and craps and some of those type things as far as that kind of happens. But I just like the concept of it. These next two singles are the ones I'm familiar with more, and I definitely recommend these. But Go is a really nice one. This is probably one of my favorite Common songs even today. This is one of the songs I'm most familiar with by Common. This is definitely a nice one. This is kind of this is kind of a plush, vivid dance club hit. I would have to say it's an easy, listless. This is some easy, listless summer fun, I would have to say, and it's just a This song has a memorable, mellow beat and hook. So I just would say it's a pretty nice one. Kanye West helps out with this song too. It's just an overall nice one. This is one of the few dance club songs on here, but it just works pretty well. It's just a very lambic kind of one, but I just like the overall mellow and kind of affable energy that this song has. It's a beautiful, real song to kind of have. I'm surprised that this song didn't chart higher than it did. Just remember it being on like Wild and Out back in the day and stuff like that. This really works as like an effectual song. This has a lot of good vibes about it, so it's a pretty nice one. And then a song that I kind of remember hearing like once or twice on MTV VH1, but it just didn't have the chartability towards it, was Testify. This is a pretty affable tune, but I think at the same time it's kind of a scandalous type song. This is a scandalous type song for bickering, I would have to say. Relationship bickering, I would have to say. This song has a sleazy feeling, but it's a kempt song, I would have to say. And it's just a very straightforward kind of day-to-day type feel. So this one's kind of a makeshift kind of song, just kind of in the sense of maybe you have child support to pay or prenup, something like that. Those type things where you'd be in a courthouse and those type things as far as that kind of happens. It's kind of the concept of going back and forth with ladies as far as that kind of happens. Do you like the concept of it? I mean, this is not a real song to kind of listen to. This is not really a club song, I would have to say, but it's just kind of the concept of if you do have some girl problems as far as that kind of happens. It's just kind of one for like more of like child support and those type things. It's just more of kind of like a bickering song for child support type things as far as that kind of happens, but it just doesn't really have much of a purpose when you're not near a courthouse or something that has to do with Testify or something in that sense. It's not really like a nightclub song or a dance club song as far as that kind of happens. I mean, maybe it can be like an eloquent kind of club song in the right sense. I almost feel like in the right eloquent kind of sense, you might be able to find like a particular nightclub that might play this song, but it just really feels more of like uptown courthouse type places as far as that kind of goes, as far as that kind of happens. But I do think the song serves its purpose. And then Faithful is the fifth single, and this is another one that I don't remember that well, but it is a pretty dope song. This is kind of a dreary, Faithful is kind of a dreary, kind of malaise bar tune, I would have to say. It's got a catchy, mellow feel, and it's just a nice glazed social cut with bite, I would have to say. So this is kind of one that where if like the food was kind of a more peppy saloon-like tune for bar hopping, I feel like Faithful is kind of a dreary kind of bar tune that's just a little bit more drunken and just kind of more this lambent as far as that kind of happens, just a more relaxed version of that that's just kind of like, hey, I'm kind of swashed a bit, kind of kick back, just kind of maybe not so much depressed, but just kind of malaised a bit, just feeling the affluence of just a little bit more fatigue and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. It's a nice one to kind of have, but I mean, I do think it's kind of a peppy. I do feel like the lyrics kind of have like some pep to them. It's not like a full-blown depressive kind of wallow in your sorrows type song, but it is kind of a malaise type tune, I would have to say. So it's just a nice one. So I do like Common's kind of affable nightlife as far as, so I do like Common's nightlife feels as far as these singles. I would say that Go is like a mellow dance club hit. Testify is like some bickering problems. Faithful and Food are like some dreary kind of bar hopping ones, or relatively bar hopping ones. Faithful and The Food are like some kind of bar hopping ones that work pretty well, and then The Corner is just kind of like a city hopping tune just for kind of being out and about in the city flash. So it's just kind of, it's got some good senses of nightlife. All of these are lyrical and they all work pretty damn well. Kanye West helps out on a number of these, and it just has some good affable vibes to kind of get with some of this. So it's just some good concepts as far as that kind of stepping out kind of goes. Different from the concept that I was expected from Common initially, but it is some good stuff. So apparently this album got a lot of accolades. There's a lot of people talking about it from what I saw in the Wikipedia article about this particular album. I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is a pretty quality album, and it is worth talking about as far as that's kind of concerned. So I do agree with a lot of these folks as far as that kind of happens. But to talk about the songs I recommend on here, basically there's 11 songs on here, and I wound up recommending to you 8.5. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend those 8.5 songs. They would be Go, Testify, The Corner, Faithful, Shy City, The Food, Real People, Love Is, and the Almost song is They Say. To talk about They Say, the Almost song, this is kind of a night traverse kind of city bop, I would have to say. It's a definite night owl cut, I would have to say, and it's pretty dreary. The song is pretty dreary, but it's in good motion. So I feel like the concept of this is kind of a song just for like nightlife, 2000s nightlife, that just reminds me of something that Kanye West would have done in like his 2000s era albums like Graduation and Late Registration, some of those type ones. Just would have to say it's a good kind of night owl one. I like this song, but it kind of takes some getting used to. It's just kind of a sleepy type one that it's kind of here and there. I kind of like it, but I'm not wholesomely sold on it. I mean, I like it enough to say it's probably some good nightlife as far as that kind of happens, but I just kind of look after. It's just one I was kind of on the fence about. It's kind of one where the beat is hitting, but it's just so mellow and kind of like lackadaisical. It's just, I was expecting, I don't know, it's just kind of the sleepy type feel of that particular song. This works great for like the night traverse. It's definitely not one where you're just going and winding down and that type of stuff, but it's just a real kind of one for nights out, but just kind of in a more lackadaisical kind of relative, just regular kind of sense. This is kind of the concept. It's just one I'm on the fence about, I would have to say. But like a particular highlight on here is Shy City. This is kind of a grimy and murky city like mixtape feel, I would have to say. This one reminds me of like a Don Cannon beat, and it's just a stock 2000s kind of production, I would have to say. So this is definitely one. Definitely reminds me of like a mixtape type feel from like 2000, something you'd expect out of Jeezy or Lil Wayne or one of those type folks, Birdman, some of those type folks, as far as that kind of happens. I mean, it's not really a southern cut, but I do like the concept of this kind of just being like an East Coast kind of mixtape grind type tune. I mean, Don Cannon kind of did the more Midwest and East Coast type city feels as far as that kind of happens. So this is just a good one for that sort of concept. It's one of the few mixtape type cuts on here, but it's just kind of a grimy and murky one that works pretty damn well, I would have to say. So it's just a good concept of that. Then Real People is a really graceful one. I definitely like this one. This is a graceful kind of night out tune, I would have to say. It's a jazzy kind of hotel beat. This one's kind of some jazzy hotel suave pizzazz, I would definitely have to say. And it's just, this song just has a comfy kind of ritzy feel for social times, I would have to say. So this one has a really kind of jazzy kind of saxophone beat on here that just is pretty beautiful. Definitely a pretty nice one to kind of have. There definitely need to be more songs like this. This is another good taste of some nightlife as far as that kind of happens. Just a real great jazzy kind of saxophone type beat. Just real suave pizzazz as far as that kind of happens. Just a nice social kind of one to kind of have. It just really feels like some hotel kind of music, definitely. So yeah, there's just a good burst of like nightlife on this particular album that just works pretty well. Common's a pretty affable dude, it seems like, as far as that kind of happens. It's a good concept to have some of these, just the traverse of just being the bustle out and about and that type of stuff just works pretty damn well. And then Love Is another highlight on this particular album. This is kind of a dreary, kind of hazy, makeshift city evening feel, I would have to say. It's got a vanilla evening feel about it, but the humdrum. This song has a vanilla evening feel about it, but the humdrum kind of feeling works pretty damn well. So this is definitely kind of a malaise one for just like some evening makeshift. Definitely kind of a day-to-day and regular day type feel about it. This is just kind of a more standard, just got done with class, just got done with work, some of that type of stuff. Just the malaise about it. Just really kind of lackadaisical, kind of humdrum kind of lyrics on here. I just like the concept of it, but I do like the fact that Common just kind of has the compelling nature to make these songs kind of work. Because not every musician has that ability, but this is just a good concept to kind of get that. This is just kind of an affable one, despite the fact that it's kind of just a regular kind of one, just kind of more humdrum and just kind of mundane, I would have to say, but it just works pretty damn well. So that's the basic concept about this particular album. The only real two songs I don't recommend would just be the title track, the intro, and then the final track on here, the outro, which is It's Your World Part 1 and 2. So those are like the only real two ones. Those are like the only real two ones I don't recommend. And talk about both those. Both those just didn't have like a compelling enough production. I kind of felt like the title track, was just a little bit more optimistic and just didn't quite have like the compelling nature as far as that kind of happened. That one was just kind of a peppy, kind of preppy type one that I just didn't vibe with. And then It's Your World was just kind of a lengthy kind of song on here. I kind of felt like maybe it didn't need to be 8.5 minutes, but that one was just kind of one that just didn't really like the composition of, just didn't really, I mean, I kind of felt like it just didn't have the right arrangements as far as that kind of happens. Just kind of one that just was not quite as engaging, I would have to say. But other than that, this album's pretty super stellar. I just would have to say, me liking 8.5 or recommending 8.5 songs out of 11 on here. So that's pretty damn good. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this album, me recommending almost 9 songs out of 11. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like a 9.25 out of 10. I really feel like if there had just been one more song, or if I had, like they say, just a little bit more, I mean, I really do feel like it's pretty damn close to getting a 10. It's just kind of the concept. Just, I feel like just between the album's short nature and then just the fact that there's just like just the brief kind of jargon that's kind of on here that's just kind of here and there. I just would say it's. I would have said that if I would have recommended They Say More, I'd probably get like a 9.5 or maybe even a 9.75 out of 10 as far as that kind of happens. I just look at the concept. This is just kind of a brief kind of album. It's just barely missed the mark as far as getting a 10, but it is pretty much like a 9.25 out of 10. Definitely recommend it. And then the social score, I'm going to give the social score though a 10 out of 10. I mean, 5 singles, all 5 of the singles hit. There's just a lot of good social nightlife and city life as far as that kind of happens. There's some makeshift on here. There's some makeshift on this particular album. There's some day to day type stuff. There's just some good kind of out and about bustle and just overall vibes that just have a lot of affability and charm about it. This is a real compelling kind of album, and this is like a really good cousin of Kanye West's particular style, and definitely recommend it in that sort of context, would have to say. And it just the nightlife feel of it is just overall compelling. I think even if you're a fan of more southern rap and gangster rap and things like that, this is still a pretty good highlight to kind of have. It's just kind of in a more kind of graceful and kind of just more like eloquent kind of sense, but it works. That's just kind of the concept. So that's kind of the thing. So 10 social. In terms of future, like Common has put out albums. I haven't paid super attention to the stuff that he's kind of done. I need to get to more Common type stuff as far as that kind of happens. But maybe I know that he at least had another Kanye produced album. I know that Common had at least another Kanye produced album in his 2007 album Finding Forever. So maybe I'll review that one. We'll see what happens with it. But this is a pretty super stellar album, I would have to say, and definitely recommend it.